Thank you very much. So I'd like just to give you a very short introduction words so you can explain to the audience today why your job helps you understand the streaming market and how it works. Yeah. Please, maybe we'll start with you, Mathieu.
Yeah. So I'm VP for business development at Deezer, which is the third biggest streaming platform in the world. And I'm responsible to grow Deezer and to acquire subscribers for different partners, mainly mobile operators, but now we are expanding to new verticals, just like retail, banking, radio channels.
Okay, so straightforward, you work for Deezer, so you know about streaming. Josquin, what about you?
Oh, hello, I'm the CEO and co-founder of Sunsgood, a Paris-based startup. It's a curation platform designed for playlist influencers. So basically, first they create and manage their playlist across all streaming platforms from Sunsgood, and then they have a single agnostic player to share their playlist on their website, on their social network. So we manage a playlist of 9,000 curators so far. They are music professionals, publishers, individual influencer brands, and among them we have Vice Media, we have Governor's Ball, we have all the playlists from Believe Digital, from several influencers like that.
So you know that because of playlist curators?
Yeah, and definitely our DNA is to help playlist curators become even more influential in the streaming era.
Okay. We'll talk about that. Johan, what about you at Sony Music?
I am the I am the director of streaming products and playlist strategy for Sony Music International. So basically, I look after all products that we build on top of streaming service and then that we use streaming data for. It could be websites, apps for internal use, external use, APIs, tools, all of those sort of things, and also for the playlist strategy and some of our playlist brands across all of our 40-something international markets.
Thank you. Mika, what about you? Well, we know a little bit about Frida now. You're also an artist, right?
Yes, usually rapping on microphones, but I never had the same mic as Madonna had, so I'm very proud to wear one today. My name is Mika Sarmakari, 15 years as an artist, that's my background, working in the music and media industry. And through working with labels and with the music export office here in Finland, I've been very interested in the different streaming markets and how much revenue is generated in different markets for the artists. So I'd say I'm representing the artists and Frida's point of view in this.
Thank you. Maybe we can start with you, Mathieu. Can you tell us just an overview for the people here of the global business of streaming, some of the major trends that are happening today before we dive a bit more into that issue of choice and how listeners can get a better experience with streaming platforms?
So now, I mean, especially in the Nordics, nobody has any more doubts that streaming is really the future of music. Streaming has grown again by 45% last year and reached almost $3 billion. So it's big, it's the future, but at the same time, we're not transformative enough to really say that it has really become a very mass consumption service. If we look at a global scale, what we see even of course in the Nordics, we're between 25 and 28% of the population already using streaming services, but even in North America, especially the US, or UK, Germany, or France, we're still around 2 to 6% of the population. So we're not the main source of music consumption still, even in these markets. It means that right now, probably, we converted a lot of music fans who are very proactive, who wants to use a lot of music on demand. But now if we have to go a step beyond and actually really be more adapted to lifestyle, meaning that we have to be more adapted to the context where music on demand doesn't really have a role to play, and where lean-back experience is going to be more important.
And Mika, what do you see here in the Nordics so special? Why is everybody using that?
Well, Spotify is from Sweden, first of all, and I think it's research that 58% from 18 to 65-year-olds have tried streaming services here, so it's a pretty big market for streaming. And but to me, one of the interesting trends still is that even though streaming is so huge, people still feel that the number one source for music discovery is radio and music radio and power play music radio. So that gives a lot to think about, what can still be done for people to discover music better.
Yeah, because basically they prefer that experience of not having to actually choose.
Exactly.
Maybe that's something that you can also further discuss. I don't, Johan, you want to point something out of it?
I mean, I think it's a natural thing. I mean, if you have a a library of 30, 40, 50 million tracks, where do you start? I mean, it's a curse and a blessing. I mean, and that's where, you know, most people have very, well, simple taste in music. They like to be served something, and which radio is still very important for us as a major label as well, but for music discovery as in general.
And this is where actually I really think that's, we talk about a lot about algorithms or human curation, but at the same time I really think that this is this combination that actually will really propose the best recommendation and the best personalized recommendations, because algorithms can really absorb and analyze a big amount of data in a very short amount of time, which a human brain can't do. Whereas in the end, we know that the music fan, the listener, is going to be always, I mean, will trust always in the end much more human recommendation than a pure technical algorithm. So the algorithm will have to make a big work that the human can work, but in the end, the human will have to pick the good, the root tracks to really provide you your soundtrack, basically.
How many editors do you have at Deezer?
Around 50 around the world.
So humans who put together playlists and suggest the feature content.
Based on the analysis coming from the algorithm and based on the past experience of the combination of context, combination of what people who have the similar profile as you listen to in music that you haven't still listened to will probably like, and stuff like this. Yeah.
And just kind of from your perspective, I guess that you also have a lot to say about the role of humans in that new business of playlist.
Yeah. So maybe we can start with the definition of a playlist curator.
Yeah, what is it?
So actually it's someone that creates a playlist, not for himself, but for an audience. So basically they are the one who guides people music discovery, and they have the power to break new artists. And if you look at the figures, that most of the stream on Deezer, Spotify, come from our personal playlists, around 40%. But curated playlists are influencing what we save in our personal playlist. So these curators, by curating playlists, have a significant impact on the business today. And it's a great opportunity for publishers, for individual influencers to start engaging an audience, a fan base across the different streaming platforms. Then I can talk about Sunsgood, because we are here to let them reach the listener across all streaming platforms. But the fact, you have to understand that for an individual influencer, for a publisher, today it's very difficult to create and develop your fan base in the streaming era, because the streaming landscape is totally fragmented. So we are here to let them reach everyone and have this full experience.
Can you tell us a little bit more about that fragmentation, and how do you think the different platforms, streaming platforms, labels, all the different players of that landscape, which one is best?
In terms of what? In terms of playlist curation, who are the best curators?
Yeah.
You have a lot of different different typology of curators. So you have, first, the number one curator today is Spotify or Deezer or Apple Music, because they are curating their own playlist, and they are the playlists that are highlighted on the streaming platform. It was not the case in the beginning of the streaming era. At this time, you had a lot of individual influencers, but now it has totally changed. Then you have the curators, the curated playlists from the music majors, from Filter, from Topsify, from Digster. Then you have individual influencers, from star influencers like Sean Parker on Spotify, or a long tail of niche curator. And then you have the publishers, music publishers, lifestyle publishers. You can also say you have the radio, but because now they are curating playlists in the streaming era, and brands as well. So you have a lot of different actors, and they don't have the same potential in terms of engaging a community with playlists. Mainly because it's very difficult today to be highlighted inside Spotify, inside Deezer. So you see a lot of those curators, publishers, individual influencers that are creating their own website, like Digster did in September. They have their own website with their own curated playlist, like what 22 Tracks and Vice are doing. Nordic Playlist is doing the same. So they are managing their own website, their own social network to develop their audience, rather than expecting something from the streaming platform.
Johan, can you tell us a little bit about the business of Filter and the impact it has on shards, for example?
Sure. I mean, we've been doing this for quite a few years now. 5-6 years we've been working with doing curation on streaming services, and we use the Filter brand more than 20 music services across the world. There's more than 300 people involved doing this across all the Sony markets. So of course, it's a big business for us. It's an important thing that we invest a lot of time and money in. And as you mentioned, Jaska, I mean, playlisting is a big influence to how people discover music today. So that's a business that we're going to have to be in. It's a direct-to-consumer channel that we didn't have before, that we now have, that we can use to recommend music. It's an important thing for us that we're going to continue to invest in.
And about the charts, I mean, do you see, in terms of the impact that it has on charts, like, do you see differences from different services that you're using, like in different territories? Your role is global, like except the US, right?
Yes, that's right.
So what is the streaming impact on charts? That's in different territories. Can you?
Oh wow! I mean, it's vastly different across all the markets. Yes. But I mean, in some of the very Spotify-heavy markets, I mean, Nordics, Benelux, of course, streaming is vastly impacting the charts. Streaming charts are the charts, and we see more and more in markets like Southeast Asia, Australia. We see that's happening more and more. And in a market like Australia, where this is just happening, and they don't really know how to balance. But they sell physical CDs in Australia still, and how do you balance that with streaming? And it's happening now in many markets. It's an interesting dynamic.
In France, we just take into account the streaming chart in the chart calculations, and it has changed the way we thought people were listening to music. And now we know that 36% of the listeners in France are listening to hip-hop music, and you have this PNL phenomena that which is trusting the chart like never before. And this is only due to the fact that we take into account streaming in the chart calculation right now.
We could talk a lot about that, because you can also influence the result of streaming charts a lot easier than maybe not than traditional charts by using bots and stuff like that. But maybe I don't want to get into this for the moment. Just wanted to continue maybe on the impact for labels. For example, back catalog. Yeah, how do you? Like, it's a great opportunity for you to leverage your catalog, right?
Sure. Yeah.
How do you do that? Tell us a little bit more, please.
I mean. One of the sort of three pillars that we build our playlisting business on is resurfacing catalog through playlisting, and we've seen, I mean, how that can be done very, very effectively, and how we can effectively build streams on the whole catalog of some of our not only legacy artists, but also but also we're talking more recent catalog. We're talking music from the 90s, from the noughties, where we have like massive amounts of streams coming from our our catalog from Backstreet Boys, or it's really big business for us. I mean, that's about half of our playlisting efforts goes to promote catalog.
And half of your revenue. Like the back catalog represents 50% of the revenue for the music major from the streaming.
It's difficult to say, but yeah, I would say somewhere around that. And do you think albums have still they're still fitting in that market, right? What do you think? Albums, is it something of the past?
We've seen album listening go down over the past few years. I mean, that's reality, and how many artists and many of the more popular artists move to a track-by-track release schedule. They release tracks, and maybe in the end they put all 6 singles on an EP and put it out. That's how the album looks like. But I mean, there's still room for an album. Still, look at Adele. I mean, that's a massive album artist. So there's still going to be certain artists that where the album is going to be massively important, but you're going to have to be a lot more clever on how you release an album in 2016 than you were 15 years ago. And for some artists, it probably won't make sense to release an album today.
Yeah. Mika, maybe yourself as an artist as well, what's your perspective on like the role of albums and this new streaming landscape that we're talking about, and how Frida will have an impact on this?
It's easier to talk about maybe the situation now. I feel like the track-by-track is very common for artists right now. It's probably everywhere. Anyone who's using a streaming service as a label would like to prefer that strategy, I would say. Even for me, one song with 5 million streams is still the song that people refer to as my album. The album came a year after that, but people are asking for the new album, the one that had those streams, because they're talking about the single, and it's even categorized as an entity, as an album in the service. So I think that's the way of the future, and that's totally fine. And when we're talking about Frida, I think it's a bigger topic. Then we're talking about the revenue streams, the possible revenue streams. When they can be greater for the content owners, then that can also influence the strategy of what you will put out. Because sometimes putting out an album can support another strategy, a live tour or your upcoming footage of something or whatever. So there's still probably room for an album, but it has to be thought out differently on how you put it out.
And do you see the role of traditional test makers or influencers like radio, blogs, like this type of media, you've been in media as well, changing in that new era as well? And how can they fit in this equation?
Yeah, there's always change, of course. Like there's new players like YouTube and bloggers are a huge change even for musicians. So you really have to choose your media platform carefully. Where you want to promote your song, you might get a lot more impact somewhere you wouldn't traditionally think of. But as far as them being wiped out somehow, I don't really believe in that. I believe in ideas and people who are experienced. If they give their influenced opinion, it still matters.
You see, maybe you want to pick this point about how artists can leverage a recommendation playlist. How, what it is, like, how does it get in?
I mean, of course, I mean the end result for each artist is definitely to have the tracks that are the most streamed. And the more stream you got, the more visible you are on any platform, on Deezer or Spotify or any other. So. Launching a new playlist with only new titles, we know for a fact that it's not going to work because the level of streams are very low. So I would say the recommendations will be either to add new tracks, new titles, just as part of other titles that are more popular as well, so that you can encourage. I mean, you already serve kind of a popular playlist, so that you can encourage the streams on these new titles. We have other solutions as well, just like on the free service, where you can have sponsored tracks, meaning you can, instead of having regular advertising on the free service, you can pay to have your tracks specifically push at this time, so that you can get out of the long tail, start to make a name for yourself, being streamed, and then naturally you start to build a kind of a virtuous circle, because you get out of a long tail, and then you start to be more visible, and then. Yeah.
You have cases, I mean, that actually work. Like I'm not saying that it's not a good investment to pay for a sponsored track, but you can prove that it's worth the money actually.
But to be honest, it's not really I would say it's not really the majority. The majority is definitely what works is you have a successful playlist or a place that is already visible, and then you have tracks by tracks on this. Yeah.
Just maybe you can tell us how to get in those playlists.
To get in those playlists. For me, there is two ways to benefit from playlist curation for an artist perspective. The first one is to be present on those playlists because you generate revenue. So we are contacted every week by promotion agencies, by record labels to say, oh, can you highlight this track to your curator community? That's very common.
And what do you tell them?
We don't work on this part because we are not here to influence the influencers. They are creating their own playlist on our platform, and so we are not working on this side. And then the second way for an artist to leverage the playlist opportunity is to become a curator himself. Like we see a lot of artists that are using Sunsgood that are curating playlists. They are creating album tracks usually. So every year they launch a new album, and in between, they are curating a playlist. They update it on a regular basis. Like every Monday, they add a new track. It's the best way for them to keep a contact, to engage their fan base in between two albums.
That's pretty interesting. Do you see this happening as well with artists that are working at Sony, or you're funneling their efforts in terms of streaming through the playlist that you guys are putting out? So are you suggesting to artists at Sony to do playlists like the way it's just going to say?
I mean, it's part of almost every artist campaign that we do now. There's some sort of playlist component, whether that's the artist doing their best of playlist, or their inspired by playlist, or the listening to in the tour bus playlist, or whatever that could be. But of course, also the artist, making sure that the artist is present on the biggest fan playlists of that artist. I mean, the playlist component is definitely important for us in every single artist setup that we do today.
I was curious, maybe one of the questions I wanted to ask to all of you is what are like maybe the innovations, products, services that have been emerging recently that you think will have an impact on the discovery, on the recommendation? I don't want to say chatbots, AI stuff, but maybe that's something you, please, you want to...
I really think, just like artificial intelligence is definitely the next step for discovery, I would say. Maybe chatbots, maybe voice control. When we see the success of Amazon Echo is definitely, that's, if you are in the right context and just tell your bot or any kind of other device where you can interact with this device by voice, saying just right now, no, I just want to listen right now to this rhythm, just play me something a little bit slower and cooler. That would be the next step of discovery, I would say, You
guys, Johan?
I think personalization we barely started with personalization. I don't think personalization is good anywhere, really. It's all right at best in some instances. And personalization that's based only on like acoustics and how track sounds, and you like this genre, so you probably like that genre. That's probably where we are. But making personalization that is much more like emotional to you, that actually are much more context driven, that you know, because I'm born in the early 80s, I probably like what was popular around when I was 12, 15 years old. I mean, that sort of like smartness, I don't think we have that. I think that's going to be the real next step, to be much more context driven, but also much more sort of emotionally driven in personalization.
Well, we announced Frida today.
Yeah, Frida is part of it, right?
Sorry?
Frida is part of that.
It's a part of that solution. We heard about that already, but I would like to say that we believe that cross-media is one of those things that can actually help you get recommendations. When you get recommendations from video to audio, from audio to video, from video to books, that's a new way of thinking about it. But even before this, I feel AI is a very important part of it, and we're going to hear a lot more about that in Slush as well. And but the previous attempts of sort of trying to manually tag a song for the system to recommend it to, I feel like that cannot be the end result of a recommendation.
Yeah, it's done. Just can't.
And from a music influencer business point of view, first I wanted to see what CrowdMix wanted to launch. So I know that they are trying to relaunch the product. And I will talk about Feature FM. So it's a brand new startup, and they are working on helping artists being present on the top playlists. So I know streaming platforms are already using this service. So this is something totally brand new, and we'll see if it works.
You think if there were more collaboration between the different players of that field, like the different streaming platforms, and part of what you're facilitating with your service, will we get a bigger pie to share?
Yeah. But the fact is that now we want to collaborate as much as possible with streaming platforms. We talk with Deezer, Spotify, and Apple on a very regular basis. But the fact is that startups has very specific challenges on the product, on the growth, and streaming platforms. The main challenge is not the UX, I guess. It's still on the business development part to get new clients. So maybe in few months, in few years, we will work more closely on user experience topics. But for the moment, we still both have different challenges.
Yeah, I mean, and something as well is that music platforms, we have a huge amount of data regarding all the behaviors and the way music fans actually use music. And we have to share this data even more with all the different partners in the value chain, maybe labels, maybe brands, maybe artists, so that they can really tailor-made and really have a bespoke approach to any kind of campaign. So yeah, collaboration. I mean, if we want to move from a almost $3 billion market to a $100 billion market in a few years, yes.
Yeah, 100 billion. Yeah. You want to say something, maybe, Mika?
Yeah, I think the pie needs to get bigger. It's the only solution. It's the only solution for the revenue streams to actually become larger. And it's possible. Look at our development. 1999 is when Napster came. It's only 16 years. So much has happened of everything. And this can't be the final point. This can't be the end of it.
Yeah, now you can listen to Metallica on Napster again. A final word before we close. What can this audience can ask you? What if they want to come to you to talk? What are you offering? I mean, they will come
Any
to you
discussion
at the
regarding music streaming distribution or partnerships? Yeah.
Okay.
We can help you become a place curator, a very influential one. So if you want to talk about it,
you have your entire team there. I mean, the co-founders are over there.
Yeah.
Johan, what they can?
Well, any playlist-related insight that's cross-service.
Third generation cross-media ecosystem, content owners, and everybody we want to talk to.
Thank you very much. See you around.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.